You want to do a little Q&A with the audience?
I think it's about time. I'm guessing some people came here with some fantasy questions tonight, so we would love to answer them for you. And maybe, I don't know that there's a third mic, so I'm just going to head out here.
That sounds good. I got one requirement on this, Hub. No questions that only help your team. And really what that means is no questions about more than one player. I don't want to hear, should I keep this guy or that guy? But if you want to talk about a player, that's great. Just something that can help the whole room, not just your squad.
I would like to know a little bit more about IDP. Give me some like IDP hints in the beginning of...
Yeah, he's talking about individual defensive players. There are guys who make a living studying that. I'm not one of them. It's a whole separate deal. And industry numbers show it's only 4% of leagues that are playing IDP. So honestly, I'm not in an IDP league, and I'm not a specialist. I'm sorry. It's just not my area of expertise.
I will tell you that the obvious, because everybody's going to take J.J. Watt, Jadeveon Clowney, if he stays on the field, is going to put up monster numbers. He's one of the few guys I would break my no rookie rule for. He's going to be a big difference maker. You want to look at a guy like maybe even a Lamar Houston who comes to Chicago, who's going to be given a chance to do things that he hasn't done before. You want to look at a guy like Tim Jennings, who is not one of the best corners in the league, but leads the league in interceptions over the last, at least tied, I think, for the league over the last 3 years. They're a lot harder to identify. Depends on how you're scoring points. But, you're looking for a couple more breakout pass rushers. You're going to get points for sacks. There's no question about that. I'm trying to think of kids that were on the cusp last year. Marcel Darius in Buffalo for an inside player, I think could put up some big sack numbers. So, you've got to identify for everybody here how you're scoring on defense. Those are just a couple guys who will pop right to mind.
All right.
Yeah, Charch, with your running back theory, what would you do if you had a top 3 pick? Would you skip on a running back?
Well, that's okay. So a little more detail on doing the opposite. I would take running backs with the first 4 picks. Adrian Peterson, Matt Forte, Jamal Charles, and LaShawn McCoy. After that, I'm not taking another running back in the first round and for the next 4 rounds. So those 4 backs to me are so elite and so proven, I would go to war with them. But if I don't have one of the first 4 picks, I'm not going that way. And if you're in an auction, that means I'd spend on those guys, but I'm not spending on the next 15 running backs. I'm putting my money on sure thing wide receivers and tight ends especially. And then I'm targeting Jay Cutler, my guy, who's right now got a 10th round ADP, and it's only costing you about $6 in the auction.
How do you feel about Brandon Cooks with the weapons that Drew Brees has around him?
I talked about Brandon Cooks a few minutes ago, so I'll yield this one to you. Do you share my feelings about Brandon Cooks? Maybe, Jimmy Graham's always going to be the 1A target there, but they need a downfield speed guy.
A lot of this is about being the fit. And unlike Darren Sproles, who was always one of 3 choices at running back, Brandon Cooks is going to be a starting wideout. Now, the Saints love to run 3 or 4 guys on and off the field at the position, but everybody I've talked to is raving about Brandon Cooks. And so, again, we keep talking about this rule about drafting rookies. You got to be careful where you do it. You can't go too high, but if you took 4 or 5 rookies out of this draft, Cooks is probably the most talked about from the analysts that I'm talking to. I'm going to get you guys. I'm just going in the order I saw the hands here. Do you think more teams in the league are going to be 2-back offenses, or is that just kind of a trend that's developed in the last year or 2?
Well, Hubman, you're in a great position to answer this, but increasingly teams are using a running back by committee approach and, trying to preserve the legs of their guys, and it's what makes those rare few running backs that are good and get all of the carries, like a Matt Forte, so incredibly valuable. So, yeah, it's an increasing tendency, and it drives up the value for those guys that you can trust that get all the work.
It's a fit with exactly what Paul was saying. If you've got one of the top even 7 or 8, if you've got an Eddie Lacy at 6 or maybe a DeMarco Murray, you're not going to take carries away from them. But if you don't have one of those top 5, 6, 7, 8, then you want to get a couple who you can trust, because if you're an NFL coach, you don't care about fantasy points. And so that's why you're going to go that way.
How soon do you draft a quarterback, and who do you take first?
Yeah, so when to take a quarterback? If you decide you want to take one of the big 3 quarterbacks, I'm all for it. Drew Brees is sitting on a monstrous season. The schedule's so easy. And if you want to go Manning, you want to go with Manning, you want to go with Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, great. No problem with that. But if you're not going to take one of those 3 early, let that position slide, and let's go get Tony Romo in the 10th. Let's go get Jay Cutler in the 10th. Those are guys you're going to be able to get late, and they're going to be very good for you. It's a deep, deep, deep year at quarterback.
I was just going to wonder, on like trading, you have a high first-round pick. Would you trade down to have a lower pick and a first round, the first pick in the second round? Would you do that?
The question is, where's the best spot to be in the first round if you can position yourself anywhere? And if you're up front, should you trade back? Which usually you can do, right? If you're sitting at position 3, usually somebody will trade down to 8 if you want to. See, what I love about being at a position, say position 8, is your first 2 picks are going to be Des Bryant and Alshon Jeffrey. And I love that. I'm not risking a running back in that spot, and I can get great receivers. So I love being at the back end of the draft because of that reason. So even better if you can get Jimmy Graham, who I love keying my whole team on Jimmy Graham. So you fit in right around spot 6. Nobody's got the guts to take a tight end to that spot, and you get Jimmy Graham at 6, and I think you're in a fantastic spot. If you really think nobody's going to go tight end, then go even later. I've seen Jimmy Graham go as late as pick 10.
Defenses, I said my top 4 just off the top of my head. They're pretty obvious. Seattle, San Francisco, Carolina, and New Orleans.
Yeah.
You got to be careful with Frisco. Navarro Bowman out till midseason at least. Alden Smith's going to be suspended for a while. They're still probably a top 5, top 6 defense. Anybody you like that I'm leaving out?
Hub, I am exactly with you on San Francisco's defense. I'm not picking them in any of my leagues. Too many problems. They lost players in the offseason. All the injuries. Alden Smith, who knows? The team I like, and the team I think is going to have more wins this year in their division, St. Louis. Best defensive line in football. They are going to get a ton of sacks. They're going to get, when you get that much pressure on the quarterback, you get interceptions, you get fumbles from quarterbacks. St. Louis is a top 5 fantasy defense, and a great sleeper for your team.
Which team has the most players with fantasy potential, yet the least difficult season?
The most fantasy potential, like the highest risk and highest reward guy? Is that what you're asking? Rob Gronkowski's the highest high-risk, high-reward guy, right? So all the injuries that he's ever had, but over the course of his career, he's good for almost 1 touchdown a game. So Gronkowski, to me, is the boldest pick you could possibly make. You'll have to take him at the end of the second round or the beginning of the third round. If you've got the guts and it pays off and you play 16 games, you've got a great find. Or maybe he gets another freak injury. And would that surprise anybody? Probably not.
The elite tight ends being off the board, and let's say you're picking in the 11th, 12th round, who would you consider a sleeper tight end?
The best deep sleeper tight end, Travis Kelce of Kansas City Chiefs. They've got nobody else to throw to. Dwayne Bowe's suspended for a game, and then he's got the finger, and Jamal Charles. Donnie Avery's no second receiver. That's absurd. He'd be unrosterable in Chicago. So Travis Kelce is a great athlete. He missed all of last year with injury. He's having a dynamite training camp in preseason. Already scored twice in the preseason. That's, if you really slough that tight end position, Travis Kelce's a guy, you can get him even later than the 12th round. He's my favorite deep sleeper at that position.